The moment Ryan stood up, champagne glass in hand, I knew something was wrong. Not because I had any particular intuition about him. After 6 years as his fiancé, I'd learned that Ryan was capable of almost anything, but because of the way he looked at Penelope across the room. That soft focus in his eyes, the one he'd never once directed at me. "I have an announcement to make," he said, and the chatter in the ballroom died down. "Tonight, on my birthday, I want to share something important." I set down my clutch purse and prepared myself. The new product launch had gone smoothly, the investors were happy, and I'd finally gotten the prototype issues resolved at 3 a.m. I was running on coffee and determination, but at least I'd made it here with his gift. "I'm going to be married," Ryan continued, and a few people glanced my way with knowing smiles. But not to Meredith. The smiles froze. Every head in the room turned toward me. I felt the weight of 30 stares, some horrified, some gleefully anticipating drama, most simply stunned into silence. Ryan extended his hand toward Penelope Hastings, a girl I'd seen at parties but never really noticed. She was pretty in a soft, unthreatening way with big eyes and a nervous smile. She took his hand and stepped forward, clutching his arm like she might drown without it. "I'm going to marry Penelope." The silence stretched into something painful. I could hear the ice melting in someone's glass. And then I did what I've always done best. I took control of the situation. I started clapping. The sound was sharp and clear in the quiet room, and everyone stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But I'd learned long ago that showing weakness was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Wonderful news," I said, and my voice came out steady, almost warm. "Wishing you both a long and happy life together. And a child soon." I slid the ring from my finger, a 5-carat diamond that had never felt like it belonged to me anyway, and held it out. The light caught the stone, throwing tiny rainbows across the tablecloth. No one moved to take it. Ryan's face had gone dark, unreadable. Penelope looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I sighed, placed the ring on the table beside a half-eaten slice of cake, and turned to leave. My hand caught someone's arm, firm, warm through the fabric of a suit jacket. Julian Ashford. He was staring at me with those unsettling pale eyes of his, the ones that always seemed to see too much. Julian was Ryan's shadow, his perpetual +1, the quiet one in the corner who never said much but somehow always ended up in my photographs. "What's wrong, Julian?" I asked. "Did you drink?" "No." His voice was low, steady. I fished my car keys from my clutch and tossed them to him. He caught them without looking. "Drive me home." "Okay." We'd taken maybe 5 steps when Ryan's hand closed around my arm. His grip was too tight, desperate in a way I'd never seen from him. "Meredith, what the hell is this?" I rubbed my temples. The headache that had been building since the 6 a.m. meeting was now a full-scale assault. "Ryan, I'm exhausted. I've been up for 36 hours. I don't have time to play whatever game this is." "Game? You think I'm playing a game?" He pulled me closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne and something else, panic maybe. "You just handed over my birthday gift to Julian and walked out like none of this matters." "It doesn't matter." I looked at his hand on my arm until he let go. "The engagement is over. You made that clear. Now I'm going home to sleep before my 10 p.m. meeting." "You have a meeting at 10 p.m.? "Yes, Ryan. Some of us have responsibilities." I didn't wait for his response. I just walked away, and this time he didn't follow. Julian drove my car like it was made of glass, careful and precise. He didn't ask questions, didn't offer comfort, didn't say anything at all. I appreciated that more than I could express. "Here," I said as he pulled up to my building. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the car's title, still in its envelope. This was supposed to be Ryan's birthday present. He's wanted this model for years. Took me 6 months to track one down. Julian's eyes widened. "You're giving it to me. Just take the keys. It's already registered. You can pick it up from the dealership tomorrow." I opened the door, then paused. And Julian? If anyone asks, you don't need to hide what happened tonight. The engagement is off. Really off? Like forever off? Yes. Forever off. He nodded slowly. Honestly, Ryan's been an idiot for years. You should have done this a long time ago. I smiled faintly, waved him off, and went inside. The shower was hot enough to sting, and I stood under it until the water ran cold. Then I forced myself to stay awake for the video conference, answering questions about supply chains and marketing timelines with the same crisp efficiency I always brought to everything. When the call ended, I collapsed onto my bed and didn't move until my assistant knocked on my door 4 hours later. You look terrible, Chloe said, handing me coffee. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. She perched on the edge of my desk while I scrolled through my phone. Dozens of messages. Some curious, some gossipy, some genuinely concerned. But the overwhelming sentiment, echoed by Julian and so many others, was that I should have taught Ryan a lesson years ago. Everyone thought this was just a fight. In their eyes, I was Meredith Chen, the girl who'd loved Ryan Ashworth so completely, so desperately that she'd lost all self-respect. They remembered the high school version of me, the one who'd done anything to get his attention. They didn't know that girl had died a long time ago. Ryan had been my first crush. Back then, he was golden, captain of the debate team, heir to a fortune, beautiful in that callous way that made everyone want to be near him. When I asked him to be my boyfriend, he'd looked at me with those pale eyes and said, "I don't date valedictorians." So I stopped being valedictorian. I dyed my hair black, got my nose pierced, started skipping class and smoking behind the gym. I reinvented myself into someone he might want. And then he showed up with Penelope, sweet, conventional Penelope in her white dresses and perfect grades, and introduced her as his girlfriend. That's when I understood. It wasn't that he didn't like good girls. He just didn't like me. But by then, I was in too deep. When our families arranged our engagement sophomore year of college, I agreed. We skipped dating entirely and went straight to engaged. You really stooped that low just to be with me, he'd asked when he found out. He grabbed my chin, forced me to look at him. Don't you understand? I will never love you. It's okay, I'd said. I don't need you to love me. I just need you to marry me. 6 years. For 6 years, I'd been his fiancée while he cycled through women like seasons. And every time I asked only one question, did you sleep with her? If he had, the engagement would be over. That was the only line I drew. The strange thing was, despite all his posturing, all his attempts to push me away, he never crossed that line. He'd flirt, he'd tease, he'd make sure I knew about every woman who caught his eye, but he never actually touched any of them. I never understood what he was holding onto so desperately. 3 days after the party, I flew back from Paris. My phone had been blowing up with updates. Ryan had already sent Penelope away. He was drinking himself stupid at clubs every night. His father had threatened to disown him. And the car I'd given Julian? Ryan had bought it back from him for twice what it was worth. When I walked out of customs, there he was. Even with sunglasses on, I could see how wrecked he looked. Hollow cheeks, shadows under his eyes, a tremor in his hands that he tried to hide by shoving them in his pockets. My father sent me, he said. He wants you to come to dinner. To apologize. I have plans. I'll call Mr. Ashworth myself and explain. Ryan stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away, tossing over his shoulder, "Do whatever you want." I didn't take it personally. I had dinner with my grandfather that night, and as expected, it was less a meal and more an interrogation. I heard about the fight, he said, pushing vegetables around his plate. He was old now, frail in ways he'd never admit, but his eyes were still sharp. I can give you an out if you want it. The Chen family doesn't bow to anyone. I want to break the engagement, grandfather. His face hardened. I'll allow you to be angry. That's reasonable. But breaking it off entirely? No. I want to end it. He slammed his hand on the table. Do you have any idea what that would cost us? 6 years of partnership with the Ashworths. Joint ventures, shared investments, reputational capital. You'd unravel all of it. I know. I knelt in front of him, something I hadn't done since I was a child. But what if I could recover the losses? What if I could bring something better to the table? He studied me for a long moment. Then come back when you have. We'll talk then. So when I left his house, I sent a message to our biggest competitor. Mr. Davenport? Interested in a merger? Alexander Davenport was the man every parent wanted their child to become. Brilliant, composed, devastatingly effective. He'd built an empire from nothing while still in his 20s, and now at 34 he was untouchable. We'd crossed paths over the years, mostly as adversaries. Last month, I'd outbid him on a piece of commercial real estate by correctly guessing his psychological ceiling, a victory I'd been gloating about ever since. He didn't reply for hours. It was nearly midnight when my phone buzzed with a single character. I sat up in bed, grinning, and called him immediately. Busy, Mr. Davenport. His laugh was low, amused. Miss Chen. To what do I owe the pleasure? I got straight to the point. My question from earlier. Any thoughts? A pause. Then, merger. The word hit me square in the chest. I opened my mouth to respond, something clever, something worthy of this moment, but he spoke again. Are you working as a matchmaker now, Miss Chen? Relief flooded through me. Of course. He was teasing. Well, Mr. Davenport, you're at that age. And I happen to know someone perfect. The silence stretched. I was about to hang up, embarrassed, when he said, Come to my office tomorrow. 9 a.m. We'll talk. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long time. Alexander Davenport didn't schedule meetings at 9 a.m. He didn't schedule meetings at all. People scheduled meetings with him, and only after jumping through hoops for weeks. I'd jumped through exactly 0 hoops. The next morning, I showed up at his office building, heart pounding in a way it hadn't since my first board presentation. His assistant led me through a maze of hallways to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Alexander was already working, glasses on, reviewing documents with the kind of focus that made lesser people nervous. When he looked up and saw me, he removed his glasses and rubbed his temples. You're actually here. Were you expecting me to cancel? I was expecting you to be drunk when you sent that message. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Explain. I Saturday. Mr. Davenport. Would you consider marrying me? It's a guaranteed return, low risk, high reward. He studied me for a long moment. You're serious? You thought I was joking. I thought you were drunk. Well. I met his gaze steadily. I'm not. So? Would you consider it? He leaned back in his chair. I heard about you and Ryan. The party, the ring, all of it. So this is real, you're actually done with him. Yes. And you want me to step into his place? Clean up his mess. He hadn't said no. That meant I had room to negotiate. I'll give you half a point on the Riverside development. His fingers tapped the desk. 3 points. You're robbing me. 1.3. Final offer. 1.5. That's my absolute limit. 3. I gritted my teeth. Don't push me. Fine. 2 points. Deal. I extended my hand. And for the record, I'm not doing this for the money. I just like winning. He shook my hand and his grip was warm, steady, nothing like Ryan's desperate clutching. Neither am I. But I also like winning. We had a deal. 2 days later, I sat across from Mr. Ashworth in his private dining room, preparing to dismantle 6 years of careful partnership. The room was exactly as I remembered. Dark wood, heavy curtains, the faint smell of cigars and old money. Ryan's father had always been kind to me in his distant way, but kindness had nothing to do with business. Ryan was there too, which I hadn't expected. He looked even worse than he had at the airport, like he hadn't slept since I'd seen him last. Before we entered, he grabbed my arm. "Why didn't you call me?" His voice was hoarse. "This engagement is about both of us. If you wanted to talk, why didn't you call?" I looked at him quietly, wondering how someone could be so clueless after all these years. "You're wrong. This engagement was never just about the two of us." He stared at me, grip tightening, and pulled me into the room beside him. Mr. Ashworth stood to greet us, his smile warm but his eyes cautious. He knew why I was here. "Meredith. So good to see you. I know Ryan caused trouble at his party, that's why I brought him today. If you want to yell at him, hit him, do whatever you need to do, I'll back you up." I smiled. "Mr. Ashworth, I asked you here to discuss our engagement. I intend to dissolve it." The warmth vanished. The room went cold. "I don't agree." Ryan's voice was sharp, each word clipped. "I don't agree to this." Mr. Ashworth's face darkened. "Sit down, Ryan." Ryan laughed, bitter and sharp. "What? Making decisions behind my back again? You forced me into this engagement, and now you want to cancel it without my consent too? What am I to you, a puppet?" Mr. Ashworth slammed his hand on the table. The crystal rattled. "What do you want, then? You've opposed this engagement from day one. 6 years of drama, of humiliation, of embarrassing both families. And now, when she finally wants out, you're fighting it? What the hell is wrong with you?" Ryan flinched but said nothing. After a long moment, he lowered his head. "Get out," Mr. Ashworth said. Ryan left, but he grabbed my arm and dragged me with him. We stumbled into the hallway like runaway teenagers, and I was so shocked I didn't even fight back at first. "Ryan, what are you doing?" He didn't answer, just kept walking, pulling me toward the exit. "Let go. You're hurting me." Finally, I started hitting him, pounding my fists against his chest until he stopped. He released me so suddenly I stumbled backward, and when I looked up, his face was pure panic. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." I was exhausted. Completely, utterly drained. I didn't understand what Ryan was doing. I'd always assumed he'd be the one to end this engagement eventually, that I was just waiting for him to finally follow through on all his threats. But now he was the only one standing in my way. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I demanded. "You've wanted out for years. I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. So why are you making a scene?" He laughed then, and the sound was worse than crying. "What I want? Does anyone ever ask what I want? Did anyone ask before deciding I'd be engaged? Before deciding the engagement was over?" And suddenly I understood. "You're upset because I ended it." My voice came out calm, clinical. "Your pride is hurt. Fine. You can tell everyone you dumped me. I don't care." I paused. "Actually, we don't even need to lie. You already announced at your party that you were marrying someone else. This just makes it official." He stared at me. "I never wanted to marry anyone else." I was silent for a moment. "But you will eventually. You'll marry someone." And I shook my head. "I've spent 6 years waiting, Ryan. I'm done." "But that night, the party, I didn't mean." "It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is that I finally understand something I should have figured out years ago." I met his eyes. "I've never liked being passive. I need to control my own future. And my future doesn't include you." We parted badly. His last words to me were, "Meredith, you don't get to decide this alone." But he was wrong. Before meeting his father, I'd already secured everything I needed. I'd had dinner with my grandfather, and though we'd talked mostly about nothing, we both understood what was happening. That night, he'd given me his blessing. "I'm old," he'd said. "I can't keep up with you young people anymore. If this is what you want, do it." The next day, I met with Mr. Ashworth in his office. We talked for an hour. The engagement was officially terminated. We agreed to release simultaneous announcements at 8 a.m. the following morning. That evening, I called Alexander to update him. He invited me to his place instead of dinner out, and I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before agreeing. We were about to be married after all. No point in being shy. It turned out I'd overthought it completely. He'd just had a long day and didn't want to leave the house. He wasn't trying to impress me either, just grilled 2 steaks, opened a bottle of wine, and let me talk. "So what exactly did you offer the Ashworths?" he asked, sprawled on his couch in a way I'd never seen him in public. Without the armor of his suits and boardroom demeanor, he looked almost approachable. "You think I'm the type to let myself be pushed around?" He raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. Honestly, the Ashworths don't have that much leverage over me. 6 years of partnership, yes, but it was always mutual benefit. The only real pressure point was the Harbor Point project. The Ashworths funded it, and my father signed a clause if the engagement ended they could pull their investment. If that happened, the land would be a loss on my books, and it would strain my capital dangerously. So you needed a new backer." His eyes gleamed. "Someone with money, power, and a willingness to help." "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm some kind of," I searched for the right word, "sugar baby." I choked on my wine. I was going to say opportunistic partner, but sure, sugar baby works too. He laughed, low and genuine. "Relax. I'm teasing." I knew exactly what I was getting into when I agreed to this. "Good. Because I'm not apologizing for being practical." "Wouldn't expect you to." By 9:30, we both had our phones out, scrolling through preliminary market reactions. Tomorrow's announcement would shake things up, and we needed to be ready. "Think it would be too ruthless if I shorted Ashworth stock before the market opens?" I mused. Alexander glanced at my screen, then showed me his own. He'd already placed orders against both Ashworth and Chen Enterprises. "You're even worse than me. Takes one to know one." He smiled, utterly unrepentant. "At least go easy on my family's stock," I muttered. "Don't completely tank us." No promises. The next morning, the announcements went live simultaneously. The internet exploded. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, calls, messages, notifications flooding in so fast the screen kept freezing. Finally, I posted 4 words on my social media, "Don't ask. I'm busy." And I was busy. There were board members to calm, investors to reassure, partners to call. Right in the middle of a meeting, the door burst open. Ryan stood there, wild-eyed and disheveled, looking like he hadn't slept in days. My assistant trailed behind him, mouthing apologies. "Wait in my office," I said calmly. "I'll talk to you after the meeting." He laughed, sharp and broken. "Meredith Chen. You're really something. Wasn't it you who said you liked me? Wasn't it you who chased me for years? Wasn't it you who insisted on this engagement?" I set down my folder. "Continue the meeting," I told the board. "I'll be back in 10 minutes." I walked out and he followed me into my office. "What?" Embarrassed now. He was pacing, manic. "You should be. This is all your fault. I never asked you to do anything. I never forced you. You're the one who pushed, and now you're acting like I'm the villain." I let him finish. When he finally stopped, breathing hard, I said quietly, "Yeah, it is embarrassing. But not for me. For your family." He looked like he wanted to hit me. "Ryan, this isn't the first time you've stormed into one of my meetings. But it's the last. Next time, I'll have security escort you out. We're adults now, and adults play by adult rules. You can't just do whatever you want whenever you want." He swayed like I'd struck him. "But you said you liked me. Meredith. You can't treat me like this." Looking at him, I felt something close to pity. "Yes, I said I liked you. But do you remember when? The first time I told you, we were in high school. The last time, we were still in high school. That was nearly 10 years ago. In 10 years, everything about me has changed. My interests, my priorities, my goals. I don't even remember what it felt like to like you back then. He stumbled backward, hitting the wall. So you haven't liked me for years. That's right. Years. All this time, his voice cracked. All this time I kept testing you. I flirted with other women, I brought them around, I made sure you knew about every single one. And you never reacted. You never cared. You just warned them not to post pictures and went on with your life. I didn't care. I kept trying to find your limits, but you didn't have any. As long as I didn't actually sleep with anyone, everything was fine. He laughed bitterly. Everyone thinks you're obsessed with me. But I know the truth. You never really loved me. I was quiet for a moment. Then, without thinking, I said, because now I have the power to decide. He stiffened and something flickered in his eyes, hurt, maybe, or realization. Ryan, I said slowly. You don't actually like me, do you? You just don't like losing. He opened his mouth to deny it, then stopped. His whole body went rigid, then slumped. I don't know how to love someone, he whispered. All these years I was wrong. I'll change. Please. Can we not break this off? It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. And it changed nothing. Ryan, listened to me carefully. When I was young, I wanted someone handsome and exciting. Someone who made my heart race. But I grew up. And now I need someone who can stand beside me as an equal. Someone who adds to my life instead of complicating it. I met his eyes. You don't meet that standard anymore. Alexander called me that evening. Your ex-fiancé is still bothering you. His tone was casual, but I caught an edge beneath it. Interesting. Mr. Davenport. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. You certainly keep up with gossip. Not gossip. Your ex made such a public scene that even I couldn't avoid hearing about it. He paused. Ryan showed up at your office, stormed into a meeting, caused a disturbance. That's not gossip. That's a business liability. I noticed he kept calling Ryan your ex, emphasizing the word each time. There was something almost territorial about it, though I dismissed the thought immediately. Alexander Davenport didn't get territorial over women he'd known for 2 weeks. It won't happen again, I promised. See that it doesn't. He hung up. I told my assistant to inform reception that Ryan would need an appointment going forward, like everyone else. The next day, after a marathon session calming investors, my phone rang again. Alexander's name flashed on the screen. Your front desk told me to make an appointment. I blinked. Not the point. I'm here. I bit back a smile. Put them on. After sorting it out, I told my assistant, from now on, if Alexander Davenport comes, let him up immediately. My assistant's eyebrows shot up. Mr. Davenport? The Alexander Davenport. Yes. That one. He gave me a silent thumbs up. I chose to ignore it. Alexander arrived carrying takeout bags from my favorite restaurant, and far too much food for one person. I started to explain that I didn't eat much, but he cut me off. Obviously, some of this is for me. I'm not your delivery service. We cleared space on my conference table and ate together, discussing the Harbor Point project while picking at noodles and dumplings. It was surprisingly comfortable. Working with him felt natural, like we'd been partners for years instead of weeks. By the time we finished eating, we'd mapped out the entire investment structure. I set down my chopsticks and studied him. Don't tell me you came all the way here just to deliver dinner and discuss business. He raised an eyebrow. I already met your grandfather. When are you meeting my parents? I choked on my water. The coughing fit went on for an embarrassingly long time, and he watched me struggle with something close to amusement. You're not planning to use me and disappear, are you? Still coughing, I waved my hands frantically. No. Of course not. Only then did he take pity on me, reaching over to pat my back. Pathetic. When I finally recovered, I admitted, I'm not great with parents. Mine died when I was young. My grandfather raised me, and his, I searched for the right word. Practical. Our relationship is functional. If I threaten the family's interests, there are consequences. If I succeed, there are rewards. Emotions don't factor into it. But Alexander's parents were different. He had a real family with real relationships and real expectations. The thought of facing them made my stomach clench. What's there to be nervous about? He shrugged. My dad likes tea. My mom likes jewelry and skincare. Buy them things and you'll be fine. When? Next weekend works. Okay. He frowned. What's with that face? What face? He reached over and flicked my forehead. Don't act like you're going into battle. I'll be there. And somehow that helped. Being with Alexander was easy. He challenged me without competing with me, supported me without coddling me. Every conversation made me think harder, every interaction left me feeling more capable. Since we'd started working together, my confidence had grown, my strategies had sharpened, my results had improved. I joked about it once. Are you my good luck charm? He'd laughed and said, You're not bad at attracting fortune yourself. We shook hands on it. To a pleasant partnership. To a pleasant partnership. I didn't see Ryan for a while after that. His friends kept sending me updates. He'd been drag racing, drinking heavily, picking fights at clubs. Someone called to tell me he was refusing to leave a bar unless I came to talk to him. I blocked that person. Eventually, the messages stopped. What I didn't expect was to find him waiting outside my apartment door. He was leaning against the wall, holding a half-empty bottle, looking like he'd been there for hours. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes red-rimmed, his whole presence radiating desperation. I pretended not to see him and unlocked my door. But before I could slip inside, his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Ryan. My voice was quiet, dangerous. Let go. His hand trembled. For a long moment, I thought I'd have to call the police. Then, slowly, he released me. I was about to close the door when he spoke. I know everything. I paused. What? He looked up and his eyes were wet. My father told me. If I hadn't agreed to the engagement back then, he would have brought his illegitimate son home years ago. He laughed, broken. He has a secret son. 2 years younger than me. I never knew. I said nothing. The day after our engagement was cancelled, he brought him into the company. I didn't even notice. Then he transferred shares to him. I still didn't notice. It wasn't until he brought him home and said, This is your brother, get along, that I finally understood. His voice cracked. I beat him so badly he ended up in the hospital. And my father said if it weren't for me, that bastard would have been the heir all along. Ryan dropped his arm, covering his eyes. Am I a complete failure? Yes, I said calmly. You are. He laughed bitterly. I knew it. You really hate me. You won't even give me a shred of sympathy. He was drunk. I didn't owe him anything. But something in his face, some echo of the boy I'd once known, made me pause. I guess I've always been the one left behind, he muttered. When I was a kid, I fought my father constantly. I thought if I rebelled enough, it would hurt him. I thought destroying myself was revenge. But he'd already given up on me. He had someone else ready to take my place. He looked at me with a twisted smile. And you? I kept trying to make you care, to make you react. But you stopped liking me years ago. I'm the only one still stuck in the past. Everyone's moved on except me. His words dissolved into incoherent rambling after that. I called his closest friend, who arrived 20 minutes later in a sports car. You too. He looked from me to Ryan, slumped against the wall. What a mess. I smiled but said nothing. You really can't give him another chance. I shook my head. He sighed, holding Ryan up with obvious effort. I knew he'd regret this. Ryan did waste my youth. But beyond that, he hadn't really damaged me. I'd wasted my own time, chasing someone who was never going to catch me. That wasn't his fault, it was mine. The weekend came faster than I expected. Alexander picked me up at 9 a.m., and I spent the entire drive in silence, running through conversation topics in my head. The silence in the car grew heavy, suffocating. Then, without warning, he reached over and took my hand. "What are you doing?" "Giving you some warmth. You look like you're going to faint before we even get there." I eyed him suspiciously. "You're sure you're not just taking advantage of the situation?" "If I wanted to do that, I would have already." He squeezed my hand once, then let go. "Relax. They're just people." His parents' house was warm in a way mine had never been. His dad cooked, actually cooked, with an apron and everything, and the food was incredible. His mom was beautiful in an effortless way, clearly a former actress who'd never lost her Polish. They were kind, curious, and utterly unpretentious. They liked the gifts I brought. His mom put on the diamond necklace immediately, exclaiming over it in a way that felt genuine. His dad examined the tea cake my grandfather had given me and nodded approvingly. "This is excellent," he said. "Really excellent." "Thank you." Everything was going well until his father asked, "So when do you two plan to get married?" Alexander turned to me with a perfectly straight face. "Yeah, Meredith. When do you think we should get married?" I wanted to kick him under the table. Instead, I smiled sweetly and said, "Whatever Alexander thinks is fine with me." He raised an eyebrow. "Then let's get the certificate by the end of the month. Wedding by the end of the year." I froze. His mother lit up like fireworks. "Oh, that's wonderful. We have so much planning to do, the venue, the guest list, the flowers." Even when we left, hours later, I still felt like I was walking through fog. One thing was certain, negotiating business deals was much easier than navigating marriage. Alexander drove me home, and when I got out of the car, he turned serious. "I meant everything I said today. You can go home and think about it." "Think about what?" "End of the month for the certificate. Wedding by the end of the year." He paused. "I'm a businessman. I like certainty. I like knowing what I'm investing in." That night, lying in bed, I analyzed marriage the way I analyzed everything, weighing pros and cons, calculating risks, projecting outcomes. I spiraled deeper and deeper until I finally got up for a glass of water and had an epiphany. Alexander had given me a trick question. I was going to marry him anyway. Sooner or later, what difference did it make? I texted him, "You're so annoying." He replied with a question mark. I smiled, set down my phone, and fell asleep. The next morning, I called him. "Let's set a date for the certificate." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure? Weren't we heading toward marriage from the beginning?" He laughed softly. "Meredith, you're incredible." Years later, after our daughter was born, he finally admitted the truth. He'd been planning an elaborate proposal, convinced that women wanted romance and grand gestures. But I'd short-circuited the whole thing by being practical. "You allergic to romance," he said, shaking his head. "So I just gave up." "You could have proposed anyway." "And been mocked by you for the rest of my life?" "No thank you, Mrs. Davenport." 3 days before we were scheduled to register our marriage, I had a meeting with the Ashworths about the ongoing business partnership. The engagement was over, but the companies still worked together on several projects. Someone needed to manage that transition. I expected Ryan's father. I did not expect Ryan himself. He was waiting in the conference room when I arrived, dressed in a sharp suit that couldn't quite hide how gaunt he'd become. When I walked in, he stood and extended his hand. "Miss Chen. Nice to see you." His grip was too tight, lasting a beat too long. I pulled away as soon as politeness allowed. "Mr. Ashworth. I wasn't expecting you. My father thought it would be good for me to handle this personally." He gestured to the table. Shall we? The meeting was surprisingly professional. Ryan reviewed every clause with careful attention, asked intelligent questions, and agreed to terms that were entirely favorable to my side. No negotiation, no demands, no attempts to leverage our history. When we finished, he asked, "Miss Chen, may I take you to dinner?" I considered refusing. But if he was genuinely stepping into a business role, we'd be seeing each other regularly. Avoiding him would be impractical. All right. He chose a restaurant I loved, one I'd never been to with him. He ordered all my favorite dishes without asking, which meant he'd done his research. I pretended not to notice. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Ashworth." I raised my glass. "I look forward to a productive working relationship." He smiled bitterly. "Do we really have to be this formal now that the engagement is off? Can't we at least be friends? More friends means more connections." I set down my glass. "Of course we can." Something flickered in his eyes. "Do you really not have any feelings for me anymore?" I felt a headache starting behind my eyes. After all these years of watching him chase women, I'd never realized he could be this emotional. "Ryan." I kept my voice patient. "You've decided to stay with the company. Focus on your work. Don't get distracted by other things." He leaned forward, stubborn. "If I do well, if I prove myself, would you give me another chance?" I was momentarily lost. Another chance at what? At us. At being together. "I'm not giving up on you, Meredith." I didn't know how to gently tell him I was getting married in 3 days. "Ryan, you can do whatever you want. Just don't do it for me. I'm not responsible for your choices. That's why you never stopped me." His voice rose. "You let me do whatever I wanted. But the moment I crossed some invisible line, you just cut me out completely." I looked at him. "So now you're blaming me?" Panic flashed across his face. "No, that's not what I meant. Ryan, I'm 1 year younger than you. Everything I've built, I crawled through mud to achieve. I don't even know if I'm on the right path. So why would you think I owe you guidance?" I stood. "You can do whatever you want. But don't drag me into it. I won't be responsible for your choices." I turned to leave. He reached for me, and before he could grab my arm, the door opened. Alexander walked in. "The manager said you were here." He crossed to me smoothly, tucking my hand into the crook of his elbow. "Introduce me." I smiled up at him. "This is Alexander. My husband." I didn't look at Ryan's face, but I felt the shock radiating from him. The blood draining, the hope dying. I pulled Alexander with me as we left. In the hallway, I glanced up at him. "Too soon to use the husband card. We're legally married in 3 days. I think you're safe." "Good. Because I plan to exercise spousal privileges early and often." He laughed quietly and laced his fingers through mine. But Ryan wasn't done. He burst out of the restaurant after us, ignoring the startled looks from other diners, and grabbed my arm. "Don't do this." His voice cracked. "Please. You're lying to me, aren't you? You're just trying to hurt me back." Before I could respond, Alexander stepped forward, positioning himself between us. "Mr. Ashworth. Have some respect." Ryan's eyes went red. "Give her back to me." Alexander smiled coldly. "Your engagement is over. There's nothing to give back." Ryan swung. I gasped, trying to step between them, but Alexander had already moved. He dodged effortlessly, caught Ryan's arm, and slammed him against the wall. The impact knocked the breath out of Ryan, and he hung there limp. "You okay?" Alexander asked me, his voice calm. I nodded. Ryan stared at us with empty eyes, all the fight gone. My patience snapped. "Ryan, this is pathetic. Whatever you're feeling, regret, loss, loneliness, I don't care. The engagement is over. Swallow your feelings. Chew them up if you have to. But keep them to yourself. Don't come looking for me again." Alexander and I walked to the parking garage. Just before I got in the car, he tugged my hand. What? He looked at me with something new in his eyes, warmer, softer. Meredith, you're pretty incredible. I think I'm starting to actually like you. I raised an eyebrow. Starting to? He grinned. Fine. I like you more than a little. I tried to pull my hand away, but he held on. So, Miss Chen, do I have your approval? We've already partnered up. We're getting married. We might spend our whole lives together. I wouldn't mind if we actually grew to love each other along the way. 2 days later, we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Our assistants had handled all the paperwork, so we just showed up, stood shoulder to shoulder, and smiled for the camera. My heart beat faster when they stamped the certificate. Just a little. But it beat. We went straight from the bureau to the office. Alexander signed the investment papers for Harbor Point. At the same moment, our company websites published 2 announcements, the partnership and our marriage. Congratulations, Mr. Davenport. I extended my hand across the conference table. Looking forward to working with you. Congratulations, Mrs. Davenport. He shook it firmly. Likewise. After the registration, we moved in together. We chose an apartment close to both our offices, neutral ground that belonged to neither of us. We worked well together and we lived well together too. For the first time in years, my life felt balanced. With Alexander's backing, I expanded aggressively. New markets, new acquisitions, new partnerships. Anything that looked profitable, I pursued. Having a powerful partner made me bold. People started calling us the power couple of profit. I didn't mind at all. I stopped following Ryan's news entirely. The next time I heard about him, he'd been sent out of the country. That surprised me enough to ask questions. His father had always been disappointed in him, using the illegitimate son as leverage to push Ryan harder. Classic pressure tactic, the kind my own grandfather would appreciate. But completely giving up on him? That didn't fit. What happened? I asked Alexander. He shrugged. Ryan tried to sabotage our business. Went after our deals directly, tried to undercut us regardless of cost. His father found out. They had a huge fight. Ryan said he wouldn't let you have peace, that he'd destroy everything if he couldn't have you back. That kind of emotional recklessness was the final straw. His father sent him abroad to keep him from causing more damage. You weren't going to tell me. He gave me a sidelong glance. Tell you what? That your ex-fiancé chose obsession over his inheritance? I didn't think you'd care. He was right. I didn't care. Not anymore. The wedding planning consumed the next few months. I tried to outsource most of it, to treat it like a business event, but Alexander kept pulling me back in. He wanted my input on everything: flowers, music, guest lists, menus. This is your wedding too, he said when I complained. Act like it. I jokingly suggested we monetize it, sell sponsorships, auction off tables, treat it like a corporate gala. He kissed me until I forgot what I'd been saying. The wedding itself was extravagant. Alexander had planned it all, and he'd planned it perfectly. Flowers cascading from every surface, music that made people cry, food that inspired endless compliments. I walked down the aisle in a dress that cost more than some cars, and when I reached him, his eyes were wet. You look beautiful, he said. You don't look so bad yourself. Ryan showed up. I spotted him in the back row, dressed impeccably, watching with an expression I couldn't read. For a moment I tensed, waiting for him to cause a scene. But he didn't. He just sat there, quiet and still, and when the ceremony ended, he slipped out before the reception started. I didn't think about him again. After we said our vows, Alexander leaned in and kissed me. Mrs. Davenport, he whispered. For the rest of our lives, I'm counting on you. I kissed him back. Likewise, Mr. Davenport. Likewise. The first year of marriage passed in a blur of board meetings and acquisitions, of late nights and early mornings, of learning each other's rhythms and routines. Alexander and I worked well together, that much I'd known from the beginning. What surprised me was how easily we lived together. He was tidy but not obsessive, organized but flexible. He made coffee every morning and brought me a cup before I even opened my eyes. He remembered that I hated mushrooms and loved thunderstorms, that I needed silence when I was thinking and music when I was stressed. Little things accumulated over months that added up to something I hadn't expected: comfort. "You're staring," he said one evening, looking up from his laptop. "I'm observing." Same thing, different word. He set aside his work. "What are you observing?" I considered the question. "That I'm happy." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that surprising?" "Yes." I leaned back on the couch. I didn't expect this. When we agreed to this marriage, I thought it would be practical, functional. Two people sharing resources and goals. I didn't think it would feel like, I gestured vaguely. This. Like what? Like coming home. Something shifted in his expression, softened, warmed. He reached over and took my hand. "I know what you mean." I didn't expect it either. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, rain streaked the windows and the city lights blurred into soft colors. It was exactly the kind of evening I'd never imagined having. "I heard from Ryan's father today," I said eventually. Alexander's grip tightened almost imperceptibly. "Oh. He wants to meet. Discuss expanding our partnership." I paused. "He mentioned that Ryan's doing well overseas. Running a satellite office, staying out of trouble. That's good for him." "Is it?" I looked at Alexander. I keep thinking about what he said that night outside my apartment. About always being left behind. About everyone moving on without him. Alexander was quiet for a moment. "You're not responsible for his choices." "I know. But I can still feel sympathy." "Sympathy is fine. Guilt isn't." He squeezed my hand. "You spent 6 years waiting for someone who wasn't going to change. That's not your fault, it's his loss." I smiled. "When did you become so wise about relationships?" "I'm not wise. I'm just selfish." He grinned. "I want you happy because happy you is profitable you." "Terrible. Absolutely terrible." He laughed and pulled me closer. "You love it." The next day, I met with Mr. Ashworth. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, though his suit was still immaculate and his handshake still firm. "Meredith. Thank you for coming." "Of course. Thank you for reaching out." We talked business for an hour, partnership expansions, new opportunities, mutual benefits. It was productive, professional, exactly what I'd expected. But at the end, as I was gathering my things, he spoke again. "Ryan asked about you." I paused. "Did he?" "He wanted to know if you were happy." Mr. Ashworth's eyes were sad. "I told him you were married and successful." He said," he hesitated. "He said that's all he ever wanted for you. Even if he didn't show it." I didn't know what to say to that. "I failed him," Mr. Ashworth continued quietly. "I pushed too hard, expected too much, never showed him how to be a good man. I just demanded that he become one." He shook his head. "That's not how it works." I thought about my own grandfather, about the practical, transactional way he'd raised me. About how I'd learned to suppress emotions, to calculate instead of feel. About how long it had taken me to understand that efficiency wasn't the same as living. "We all do the best we can with what we know," I said. "At some point, we have to let go of blame and just move forward." He looked at me for a long moment. "You're wiser than your years, Meredith." "I'm not wise. I'm just tired of carrying things that aren't mine to carry." He smiled faintly. "Ryan's mother used to say things like that. Before he stopped, cleared his throat. Well, that was a long time ago. I didn't ask. Some griefs aren't mine to touch." That night, I told Alexander about the conversation. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he pulled me into a hug. "You're a good person," he said. "You know that. I'm a practical person. There's a difference. There's overlap." He kissed the top of my head. "Come on. Let's eat dinner and not think about the Ashworths for one night." Dinner was takeout from our favorite place, eaten on the couch while watching a terrible movie. It was perfect. 6 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. I stared at the test for a full minute, watching the 2 lines darken before my brain actually processed what it meant. Then I called Alexander. "You need to come home." "Are you okay?" "What happened?" "I'm fine. Just come home." He made it in 20 minutes, which meant he'd broken every traffic law in the city. When he burst through the door, pale and panicked, I held up the test. "We're having a baby." He stopped dead. For a long, terrible moment, he just stared at me. Then his face cracked into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "A baby. A baby." He crossed the room in 3 strides and lifted me off my feet, spinning me around until I was dizzy and laughing. When he finally set me down, his eyes were wet. "Meredith. A baby. You keep saying that. Because I can't believe it." He pressed his forehead to mine. "We're having a baby." The pregnancy was easier than I'd expected. No morning sickness, no complications, just a growing belly and a growing sense of wonder that this was actually happening. Alexander hovered without being suffocating, researched without being obsessive, supported without being overbearing. He was, in short, exactly the partner I needed. We didn't find out the sex ahead of time. Alexander wanted a surprise, and I didn't care enough to argue. But we argued about names constantly. He wanted something classic, I wanted something unusual, until finally we compromised on a short list of options for either outcome. The birth was harder than I'd expected. 18 hours of labor, complications that required emergency intervention, a moment of terror when they whisked the baby away and I couldn't see anything. But then I heard crying, loud, healthy crying, and Alexander's voice rough with relief. "She's perfect. Meredith, she's perfect. Our daughter. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that could shatter glass." They placed her on my chest, and I looked down at this tiny, furious creature and felt something crack open inside me. "She's perfect," I agreed. We named her Elena. Not too classic, not too unusual. Just right. The first few months were exhausting. Elena woke every 2 hours, demanded constant attention, and seemed to have an unerring instinct for interrupting important calls. But she also smiled for the first time at 6 weeks, and that smile made everything worth it. She gripped my finger with surprising strength and stared at me with Alexander's eyes, and I fell in love in ways I hadn't known were possible. "She has your stubbornness," Alexander observed one night, walking laps around the living room with a fussy Elena. "She has your dramatic flair. She gets that from you too." We bickered affectionately while our daughter slowly calmed down, and when she finally fell asleep, we stood together in the dim light, watching her breathe. "Thank you," Alexander said quietly. "For what?" "For this. For her. For everything." He looked at me. "I know we didn't start the way most couples do. But I can't imagine my life without you now." I leaned into him. "Me neither." Elena grew fast, too fast, according to every parent we knew. She crawled at 6 months, walked at 10, and was speaking in full sentences by 18 months. She had my intensity and Alexander's charm, which made her both exhausting and irresistible. When she was 2, we took her to meet my grandfather. He was older now, frailer, but his eyes still sharpened when he saw her. She stared back at him with equal intensity, and for a long moment they just looked at each other. "She has your chin," he said finally. "She has your stubbornness." He snorted. "Good. She'll need it." Elena, apparently deciding he'd passed some test, climbed into his lap and demanded a story. And to my astonishment, he told her one, not a business lesson or a strategic parable, but a real story about his own childhood, about adventures and mischief and things that had nothing to do with profit margins. Alexander squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. That night, after Elena was asleep, my grandfather called me into his study. "You did well," he said. "With the marriage. With the child. With everything." I waited. There was always a but with him. But he just nodded once. "Your parents would be proud." It was the closest he'd ever come to saying he was proud himself. And somehow that was enough. Elena was 5 when Ryan came back. I heard about it through the usual channels, business contacts, social media, the endless gossip network that connected our world. He'd been abroad for years, building a satellite office into something successful, proving he could actually function without his father's constant oversight. The prodigal son, returned and redeemed. I didn't think much about it. People came and went from my life constantly. Ryan was part of the past, and I'd made peace with that years ago. Then I got an invitation. It was for a charity gala hosted by the Ashworth Foundation. Nothing unusual, I received dozens of such invitations every month. But this one had a handwritten note attached to the formal card. "Meredith, I'd understand if you don't come. But I'd like to see you. Just once. To say the things I should have said years ago. Ryan." I showed it to Alexander that night. He read it without expression, then set it down. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." I honestly didn't. Part of me thinks I should go. Closure, maybe. But another part thinks there's nothing to close. It's been 7 years. 7 years is a long time. He paused. People can change in 7 years. Can they? He looked at me steadily. We did. He wasn't wrong. The practical strangers who'd signed a marriage contract had become something else entirely. Partners in every sense, friends, lovers, parents. We'd built a life together, brick by brick, and it was stronger than anything I'd ever imagined. "If you go, I'll come with you," Alexander said. "If you don't, I'll support that too. Either way, we decide together." I kissed him. "When did you get so good at this?" "I learned from the best." I decided to go. The gala was at a hotel downtown, all crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths and people who'd known each other too long to pretend they liked each other. I wore red, partly because it looked good on me, partly because it sent a message. I wasn't mourning anything. Alexander stayed close, his hand on my back as we worked the room. Old contacts, new partners, the usual dance of business disguised as socializing. I was halfway through a conversation about market trends when I felt the shift. People's attention moving. Conversation patterns changing. I turned. Ryan was walking toward us. He looked different. Older, certainly, gray at his temples, lines around his eyes. But also calmer somehow. More solid. The restless energy that had always surrounded him was gone, replaced by something quieter. Something almost like peace. He stopped a few feet away. "Meredith." "Ryan." We looked at each other for a long moment. Then he smiled, small, tentative, real. "You look good." "I am good." I reached for Alexander's hand. "You remember my husband?" "I do." Ryan nodded at Alexander. "Davenport." "Ashworth." The two men regarded each other with careful neutrality. Then Ryan's gaze returned to me. "Can we talk?" "Just for a few minutes." Alexander squeezed my hand, then released it. "I'll be at the bar." He walked away, and I was alone with Ryan for the first time in 7 years. We found a quiet corner away from the crowd. Ryan ordered champagne for both of us, then set his glass down without drinking. "I rehearsed this," he admitted. "What I'd say if I ever saw you again. I had whole speeches prepared. And now I can't remember any of them." He laughed softly. "Typical, right?" I smiled despite myself. "A little." He was quiet for a moment, staring at his glass. Then he looked up. I'm sorry. 2 words. Simple. Direct. For what? For everything. For wasting your time. For treating you like you didn't matter when you were the only person who actually stayed. His voice roughened. For being too young and stupid to see what was right in front of me. I didn't say anything. I know sorry isn't enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I needed to say it anyway. He met my eyes. You deserved better. You always did. I thought about all the years I'd waited for those words. All the nights I'd imagined this moment, pictured him finally understanding, finally apologizing, finally seeing me. In my fantasies, his admission changed everything. In reality, it changed nothing at all. But it still mattered. Thank you, I said. For saying that. I mean it. I know. I took a sip of champagne. How are you really? He considered the question. Better. Different. I spent a long time being angry at everyone, my father, you, the world. But eventually I realized the only common denominator was me. He shrugged. So I worked on that. And I'm not fixed. I don't think people get fixed, not completely. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. He smiled, and for a moment I caught a glimpse of the boy I'd once known, the bright, reckless one who'd made my heart race in high school. But the moment passed and he was just a man again. A man I used to know. I'm glad you're happy, he said. I watch from a distance sometimes. See your company announcements, your family photos. You and Davenport, you fit. We do. His good to you. His good for me. There's a difference. Ryan nodded slowly. I think I understand that now. He set down his glass. I won't bother you again. I just wanted you to know I see it now. What I threw away. And I'm sorry. I reached out and touched his hand briefly. Goodbye, Ryan. Goodbye, Meredith. I walked back to Alexander, who was leaning against the bar with studied casualness. He raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? It's done. Good. He took my hand. Ready to go home. More than ready. We left together and I didn't look back. Elena was waiting up for us when we got home, which meant she'd bullied her nanny into letting her stay awake. She launched herself at me the moment I walked through the door. Mama, you're home. I'm home, baby. I scooped her up. Why aren't you in bed? I missed you. Alexander ruffled her hair. You saw us this morning. That was a long time ago. We laughed and carried her upstairs together, tucking her in with the elaborate ritual she demanded, 2 stories, 3 songs, and a glass of water she probably wouldn't drink. By the time we finished, she was already half asleep. Alexander kissed her forehead. Good night, Elena. Good night, Daddy. Her eyes fluttered open. Mama? Are you happy? I blinked. What? Are you happy? Grandma asked me once and I didn't know. So I'm asking now. I looked at my daughter's face, so serious in the dim light. Then I looked at Alexander standing beside her bed, watching me with those eyes I'd come to love more than I'd ever thought possible. Yes, I said. I'm happy. Good. She closed her eyes. Me too. We stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. Then Alexander took my hand and led me out of the room. In our bedroom, with the door closed and the world shut out, he pulled me close. You are happy. I am. I leaned into him. Ridiculously, unexpectedly, completely happy. Good. He kissed my forehead. Because I am too. We stood there for a long time, holding each other, not talking. Outside, the city hummed with its endless energy. Inside, everything was quiet. I used to think happiness was a weakness, I said eventually. Something that made you soft, made you vulnerable. I thought the only way to survive was to be hard all the time. And now, And now I think I was wrong. I looked up at him. Happiness isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the thing that makes everything else worth it. He smiled. You're getting soft in your old age, Mrs. Davenport. I'm getting wise. There's a difference. Is there? Absolutely. I kissed him. And you love it. I do. He kissed me back. I really do. Years later, when Elena was grown and we were old, people would ask us the secret to our marriage. How did two such practical, ambitious people build something that lasted? How did we navigate the challenges, the changes, the inevitable rough patches? Alexander always gave the same answer: we chose each other. Every day we chose each other. And I always added, and we never stopped negotiating. They'd laugh, thinking we were joking. We weren't, not entirely. But we also weren't telling the whole truth. The real secret was simpler. We'd started with a partnership and ended with a love story. Not the kind you read about in books, not dramatic or destined or meant to be. Just two people who decided to build something together, brick by brick, until one day they looked around and realized they'd built a home. That was enough. That was everything. The end.